Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the main news on Camnet TV. Here are the headlines. Zambia's inflation rate increases for the consecutive 7th month to hit 13.2%. About 200 villages in RUFUNSA district are on the verge of being evicted from their land. Government pledges to work with both private and public media. And in international news, more than 70 dead in artisanal mine collapse in Mali. And in sports news, judge proposes Spain's Luis Rubiales first trial over Hermoso World Cup keys. My name is Sylvia Zulu. Do join me with the details shortly.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
And now the news in detail. Some residents of Kirinyaga in Central Province have called on government to quickly complete the construction of a bridge at Dam 4 before health and educational facilities. One of the residents, Nation Nkoma, has disclosed that heavy rainfall often leads to flooding, making it difficult for farmers to sell their produce. They have expressed concern that if not quickly attended, the bridge may lead to calamity.
After rain season, so that was the bridge, so twalira kubuteko twafweni yaikara sana I project tatwaishwane po yayiminina nabale bombera po tatwishibe so tatwaishwane kwa kuyatitu bitse bwino tumone bade turanguruka shani Dam 4 alafingi ku Dam 4 ife tunekamira amaskuru yabera patani kwende shitari abana ukuya ku skuru so ito turarira kubuteko twafweni monene turetula abana kutwala shani monene so nemukuko amenje fo ya repita ito turesubira fe kuri mwe buteko muri po twafweni
twaikara kuno ku Dam 4 twakokola ko sana tatulemona ma improvement ali ko pa bridge abana be skulu ngayabani rain season shupikwa sana abana be skulu ba grade 1 grade 2 balaleka nokuya ku skulu mlandu wa ine dam tulelo mba mwebute ku mutulole kisepo so that at least mwabika ko bridge apa abana besu balepita bwino pakuya ku skulu na bakansela besu tulelo mba disi mwebute ku mwabombera bose chapa olonwa opposition mwabombera na bena pamu so that kuno at least we antanshi waisa.
A 68-year-old woman from Kasama in Northern Province is appealing to well-wishers to purchase a wheelchair for her granddaughter. Speaking in an interview in Lusaka Thursday morning, Kabakaba Mbeleta says her 26-year-old granddaughter, Sarah Kasongele, is using a broken-down wheelchair, making it difficult to move her around. Ms. Kabakaba adds that the granddaughter is on social cash transfer, but the 800 kwacha given every 2 months is not enough to cater to all her needs.
Kasama-based Kabakaba Bereta is appealing to all wishers to come to the aid of her 26-year-old granddaughter with a wheelchair. 26-year-old Sarah Kasongela, who has a physical disability, is using a broken-down wheelchair as the grandmother is unable to purchase a new one. Speaking at her daughter's house in Lusaka's Kanyama, Ms. Bereta says due to the lack of a wheelchair, it has been difficult to move her grandchild around.
kumuteka feifine ngokumwimya
She adds that despite receiving social cash transfer of 800 kwacha, it is not enough to buy other necessities, more so a new wheelchair for Sarah. As it is said, a disability does not occur in one's body, but in the environment of interaction. It is therefore hoped that the assistance of a wheelchair to Sarah can enable her live a happier life. For Camnet TV News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
Over 200 families in Mpokota village in Chief Bundabunda's area in RUFUNSA district are on the verge of being evicted from their land. This follows reports that a named mining firm wants to establish a mine in the area. Some of the affected villagers who spoke to Camnet TV have expressed concern over development, adding that the purported eviction has been necessitated by the discovery of copper deposits in the area. The villagers say the copper deposits in question were discovered by the locals, who later formed a cooperative called Mpokota Community Small Scale Multi-Purpose Cooperative and applied for an artisanal license at the Ministry of Mines Kadeta Department. They, however, say before the license could be issued, the named mining company then applied for an exploration license, which was immediately awarded. The villagers have wondered why they have been sidelined at the Mines Kadeta Department, even after President Hakainde Hichilema instructed officials to give the villagers consent to continue mining the copper deposits in the area. The villagers have called on President Hichilema to come to intervene in the matter.
Dandaula manja virus manje bamira chabatise batipishe kwabula polisi bambiri bango babwera kuno ile kutwa tipishe isena mafuti kuno but se dandaula seba kubacha ma community kuno ndiye kwa watu they want diera most bande want tipezera chani orapa manje so apa virus banaleta abantu kuno kulibe kwa community anasebenzapo bantu anasenza bachwa kutali
Chito tinale kati lingale bana ba skulu tenze kutandizibwako kuno kuntu kupezeka kuti vonse banati valila so ise vochita tipempa kuli ba president batithandizire ise batipaseko chabe kangono chabe kuti nase tizisebenzirapo tizipezapo ma benefit yothandizirapo bana bathu mawido tizibathandiza pano bana baphunzire skulu bazaphunzisa bwanji bana tilingale chabe
ife tinaona ti CDF yatu nyeminei so ndimati pezera ndrama ndiye tinafomiwa kuti inkhali CDF yatu ife tizipeza mo ndrama kustandizira oro ni free education but kufunika nsapato za ku school mabuku mabagi ni vambiri vane vimafunika so mwamene omde matezo tandizika kuti tizipeza chani ndrama zokuti bana waendelemo ku school because of free education ngati mwana alibe nsapato sanga ende ku school alibe mabuku sanga ende ku school so mwande mtezo peza mabuku nsapato vonse vane vifunika vinango na vakudya kuti mwana ende ku school na mphamvu ni vakudya so ndiye chikucha ntipemphako ife chabe ku anthu akusogolo but mveko chifundo pankhani ya maini.
We want the president of this republic, he emphasized that let the community form the cooperatives as a way of empowering the community, and the cooperative must be able to apply artisanal. Artisanal is a preserve for the local Zambians, but what these fellows have done, they have a large-scale exploration license. Now they are abusing the rage of the Zambian people. They have just gotten rages from other villages and they want to form a cooperative. How can a big company form cooperatives? And then they want to start mining where the Mpokota community have applied. And the cadastre and the Ministry of Mines, we don't know why they are taking so long to empower the people, the Zambian by birth and Zambian by descent. But they are trying to empower those people who are not even Zambia by descent. They could be Zambian by birth or by adoption, but these are the local Zambians who are poor. These are people who have got no money, and God has given them these natural resources, copper. But then these whites, they want to chase away the villagers. Where are they going to go? These are the people that have been voting. These people from Velos, they stay in Lusaka there. They don't even belong to this district, RUFUNSA.
The Zambia Land Alliance has appealed to local authorities in the country to fully implement the Regional and Planning Act of 2015 to curtail mushrooming and plant settlements. Alliance Executive Director Patrick Musole notes with concern that local authorities have not been proactive in curtailing unplanned settlements in the country. He was reacting to the government's announced plans to commence the replanning of shanty compounds in the country to address recurring waterborne diseases such as cholera.
Zambia has enacted a law that empowers local authorities to implement integrated development planning. That's the Urban and Regional Planning Act of 2015. The law is in place, and the human resource is in place. We have directors of planning in all the districts and municipal councils and the planners and so forth. So all we need is actually the political will to be able to put money into this activity so that we can plan. So the law has been in place for the past 9 years or so. And what we need to do is to implement integrated development plans. From what I know, there are very few planning authorities that have put in place local plans. And yet the law has been in place for a while. So what we need as a country, one, we can respond to this emergency through replanning. Now, replanning will cost us because it will entail that we have to demolish houses and other structures in order to make way for roads and other service delivery infrastructure. So that will cost us. We also have to compensate for the people whose structures we're going to demolish.
Zambia's annual inflation rate has continued to climb for the 7th month to hit 13.2% in January 2024, the highest since February 2022, up from 13.1% in the prior month, mainly on the back of a weakening currency. Speaking during the monthly bulletin Thursday, Zambia's Statistics Agency Statistician General Mulenga Musepa says the increase has been necessitated by price movements of selected non-food items, such as the increase in the purchase of vehicles. Mr. Musepa discloses that the overall monthly inflation for January 2024 stood at 2.1% from 1% and attributed the increase to price movement of cereals, meal, maize grain, samp, rice, eggs, and cooking oil. Meanwhile, Statistician General, however, dispelled allegations by some stakeholders that inflation does not reflect the true economic situation of the country.
With those developments in both food and non-food inflation, the January inflation rate was at 2.1% from 1%. That is the same level as in January 2023. So over the 12-month period, that is what we compiled. Let's move to the annual. The annual non-food inflation slowed down to 13.7% from 14.2% in December 2023. Now, this, you see, the main driver basically was vegetables, and I think much of it for economists, it's most likely a seasonal effect. And but we also had a slowdown in meat inflation, and the various types of meats are shown in the slides. However, the annual non-food inflation was up at 12.4% from 11.6% in December 2023. And again, like on a monthly basis, the drivers, purchase of motor vehicles, then we also had spare parts on an annual basis and accessories, airfares, domestic, regional and international, were also part to the push-up in annual non-food inflation, and also charcoal and blankets. Now, what was the outturn? The outturn in overall inflation was basically 13.2%. mainly driven by that slowdown in food inflation.
Private Schools and Colleges Association of Zambia says the postponement of opening dates has affected private institutions greatly, as most private institutions solemnly depend on school fees from students. Speaking to Camnet News, Priska Executive Committee member Honesta Kumwenda says private schools are ready to accommodate learners as they have put in place the necessary measures. Mrs. Kumwenda says children are safer in schools because it is a controlled environment. She has further urged parents to start paying tuition fees, as the first term will run for the exact number of weeks a term must have, regardless of it starting in February.
Or us in the private sector, we are not saying this hasn't affected us. It has affected us a lot, in that we depend on tuition fees paid by parents, and in this case, when children are not here, the fees haven't been paid. But we would like to urge the parents, even now that schools are being postponed, that they should still pay, because in this case 12th of February is just in a few weeks time, and if they will not pay, that still might affect the learning of their children. In terms of preparedness, I think a lot of us in the private sectors, we are ready, we've prepared. We've bought the buckets, we've bought the chlorine, we've put our surroundings clean and green in readiness for the children to come.
National quality education in Zambia calls on time the country experiences a cholera pandemic. NACA's Executive Director Aaron Chansa says cholera is a preventable disease that needs a proactive approach from relevant authorities to curb cholera. Speaking during the handing of disinfectants to 7 schools in the Chivolia zone, Mr. Chansa says going forward, no further extensions should be made on reopening dates of schools in the country.
The 2024 academic year was supposed to resume on the 8th of January, but with a surge in cholera cases, the opening date was rescheduled to January 29th, and later the Ministry of Education moved the opening date to February 12th, 2024. Stakeholders in the education sector, such as National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, NACA's Executive Director Aaron Chansa, is calling on the government to be proactive and ensure that the country never records a cholera outbreak, as it is a preventable disease. Mr. Chansa was speaking when he donated assorted disinfectant materials to 7 schools in Lusaka's Chivolia zone at the Chivolia Secondary School.
And to plead with government and the Zambian people that we let this be the last time that Zambia is experiencing this pandemic. Cholera is a preventable disease. We know the causes of cholera, and Zambia has the capacity to prevent this. Our position is that if we were to be proactive, we can stop this in December by making sure that all areas that are prone to this are actually disinfected, to benefit about 6 schools. 6 schools. The value of the donation is 12,500 kwacha. It may not be very enough, but I think that it is going to go a long way in helping our schools.
And Bright Musonda, District Guidance Counseling Coordinator, representing DEB's District Education Officer Ian Mioba, appreciated the gesture from NACA's.
For choosing Lusaka District, which is our district, and in particular choosing our schools in Chivolia zone, considering them for this important gesture. We thank you very much, and in thanking you, we are saying that the donation which you are making to our schools in Lusaka district and Chibolia district will go a long way, because it has come at the right time.
Meanwhile, the Zambia National Education Coalition, ZANEC, calls on the National Disaster Management and Mitigation Council of Ministers that decided to extend the school closure to put in place adequate measures in the 2 weeks that schools will be closed to ensure that schools have all the necessary requisites as they reopen.
The National Disaster Management and Mitigation Council of Ministers that decided the school closure to be extended needs to put in place adequate measures in the 2 weeks that schools will be closed to ensure that schools will have all the necessary requisites that will protect learners from cholera when they reopen. Number 2, it was also not prudent to generalize the closure of schools in all parts of the country. The extended closure of schools should have been only in parts of the country that have cholera.
Cherish Sibote for Camnet News, Lusaka.
A local policy think tank has urged government to further strengthen the Constituency Development Fund CDF Guidelines, the Center for Trade Policy and Development. Notes that despite the promising potential of the increased CDF in enhancing community welfare, a critical gap still exists, which requires immediate attention to ensure the revised guidelines adequately address the challenges faced by communities. Organization Programs Coordinator Natalie Kaunda says it is imperative to revise the CDF guidelines to steer an inclusive approach and ensure participation and representation of communities in CDF decision-making processes and enhancing transparency and accountability.
The current status of the Constituency Development Fund guidelines prompts the Center for Trade Policy and Development to call upon government's further consideration, specifically in mining communities who bear a disproportionate burden of negative consequences, face unique challenges, and are often excluded from the benefits of mining activities. Despite the potential of the augmented CDF to uplift the welfare of communities, there exists a critical gap that calls for immediate revision of these guidelines in order to address the specific challenges of these communities. A critical gap that currently exists within these guidelines is a lack of a framework for data retention and assessment of the developmental impacts of the CDF. The current CDF guidelines also lack a robust auditing mechanism to prevent leakages as well as misuse of funds. Therefore, as a recommendation, the Center for Trade Policy and Development calls for increased community participation, transparency and accountability in the operation of CDF, as well as prioritization of social and environmental issues when developing the revised CDF guidelines.
This is the main news on Camnet TV. We take our first break.
Are you looking for a reliable and efficient courier company with international standards? Then let UBZ Courier, your trusted partner in swift and secure deliveries, be your ultimate choice. Whether it's a small package or a hefty consignment, UBZ Courier handles it all, locally and internationally. Our modern call center ensures personalized attention for every client. For seamless deliveries within Zambia and beyond, trust UBZ Courier. Call us now on +260 763 062 680 or visit us at plot number 15 Mwapona Road, Woodlands, Lusaka, Zambia. UBZ Courier, a world-class brand that can be trusted.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. Camnet TV is on channel 274 on DSTV, channel 25 on GoTV, and find us on channel 106 on Topstar. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll now continue with more news. The government says it understands the crucial role that the media plays in fostering development in the country. Ministry of Information and Media Director spokesperson Henry Kapata said this when he visited Camnet TV during his familiarization tour of media institutions. Mr. Kapata says the government appreciates the role that the private media plays in communicating its developmental agenda to the masses. He says his office will work closely with the media houses, especially private, so that government projects are well publicized. Mr. Kapata further observed the major role that the media plays in ensuring that the masses make informed decisions. And Camnet TV Managing Editor Patrick Soko said the institution stands ready to work with the government in fostering national development. Mr. Soko appreciated the government for enacting the Access to Information Bill into law and waiving taxes on the importation of broadcasting equipment. He further urged Mr. Kapata to uphold President Hichilema's directive to protect the private media.
Open up a new page, we'll be engaging you, and we want to make sure that you're part of the developmental system that we have said this is the way government should be run. This is a new chapter. You're part of government. We'll wait for a report from our colleagues here. They will be able to tabulate what is it that they can partner with government. And we'll be ticking. Here we can do better. You know, we're in a crisis now, corona crisis.
Yes.
You are the people that are closer to the community. You should be able to guide us, to say, okay, it's not about what we see, corona statistics every time. Yes, Ministry of Health can put up statistics. But do statistics construct news per se? Not so much, but it's good information, maybe for research or for understanding.
Sometimes now we're being converted into clarifications agency. When social media misinforms, we have to now retell the story because now to bring things into perspective. Then sometimes that also creates a bad perception because people don't understand the people behind social media. They just say the media, journalists, you see. So at the end of the day, our reputation is undermined. What a situation where credibility does not only extend in the mainstream media, but also goes beyond. And on social media, in the social civic space, in as far as the digital space is concerned, we should also achieve credibility because that is important for us. We should make sure that information is credible. Absolutely.
The government, through the Ministry of Information and Media, is in the process of repealing and replacing the Independent Broadcasting Authority (IBA) Act number 17 of 2002 and the Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation (ZNBC) Act Chapter 154 of the laws of Zambia. Ministry of Information and Media Permanent Secretary Tabo Kawana says the move is necessitated by technological developments, fragmentation in legislation, international best practices, and changes in the statute books, among others. Mr. Kawana said the act has only been amended twice, in 2010 and 2017. He said this on Thursday in a speech read on his behalf by Director for Planning and Information, Moffat Billy, at a stakeholders consultative meeting on the proposed repeal and replacement of the said acts at the Mulungushi International Conference Center. In other news, the Non-Governmental Gender Organization Coordinating Council, NGOCC, has condemned the alleged murder of the former cabinet minister in the MMD government and former Zambia Air Force Commander, Lieutenant General Ronnie Shikapwasha. NGOCC chairperson Grace Nkamba says in the spirit of addressing the increasing cases of gender-based violence, justice must prevail for the late former ZAF commander. Ms. Nkamba has also advised the nation and stakeholders to do their part in curbing GBV at all levels and challenge the police to regulate the access and use of firearms in the country. We now take our second and final break. To join me for the rest of the news shortly.
Potatoes, the unsung heroes of flavor. From crispy chips to creamy mash, potatoes are the versatile superstars of your kitchen. Grown with love by our dedicated workforce drawn from around the community of Palabana. Savenda Farms' commitment is to see to it that we have potatoes that are grown right, healthy, big and tasty. For that quick fix or big celebration or that meal that brings family together, top chefs rely on the Savenda potato to create culinary masterpieces. And for others, it's that icebreaker to a delightful conversation. So, embrace the magic of Savenda potatoes. They're not just a side dish, they're the heart and soul of your kitchen. Savenda, save nations, develop Africa.
Are you planning to marry or get married? Contact the Camnet media team for a professional capturing of your big day in life. Let your relatives, friends and the nation join you in celebrating your big day on television. Just at a manageable fee, Camnet Television will cover and transmit your wedding on your channel of choice. Contact the marketing department on mobile number. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
I give my love to heaven home.
Thank you so much for still staying with us. And now, in foreign news, at least 73 people have been killed after a tunnel collapsed at a gold mining site in Mali, where 200 miners were working. Mali, which is among the world's poorest countries, is one of Africa's leading gold producers. Now, the government is launching an investigation.
They had come to Mali's southern district of Kangaba on a rumor that they could find gold and get rich. Instead, they lost their lives. Scattered on the grounds, what is left of the gold miners' belongings. Late on Friday evening, they descended 100 meters below ground in galleries they built using wooden planks. There were hundreds of miners hand-deep in the soil searching for gold when survivors say they heard a loud rumbling noise. Moments later, the gallery collapsed. Silence descended on the site, only broken by panicked miners above ground desperately calling on nearby villagers for help. The village chief, Nanguma Diara, says they buried 73 bodies at the cemetery. The rest are still stuck below. Where were the authorities when they needed them, he asks. The surviving miners seem lost for words, still in shock. It could have been them. They are mostly migrants from neighboring Senegal and Burkina Faso. They watch officials survey the site.
The tragedy took place on a site that belongs to a multinational company called African Gold Group, also known as Tubani Resources. A concession that is legally attributed should not have artisanal miners operating on their site.
The Canadian-listed company African Gold has not commented on the accident, but the multinational's paper claims it is compliant with local legislation. Mali is one of the poorest countries in the world, and yet it is the fourth largest exporter of gold in Africa. Gold mining in the Sahel region has become a lucrative but dangerous business. In February 2022, at least 59 people were killed in Burkina Faso after the explosion of a stockpile of dynamite at an artisanal gold mining site. Mining accidents are also regularly reported in Guinea, Senegal, and Western Mali. But those responsible for these accidents are rarely prosecuted. The villagers of Kangaba are mourning, unable to bury their dead. They are angry and call for justice. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera.
The leader of Guinea's ruling junta, Colonel Mamadou Doumbouya, has been granted the rank of general, according to an announcement made by the presidency on social media. Doumbouya assumed control of Guinea following the ousting of the country's first democratically elected president, Alpha Condé, in September 2021. Initially appointed by Condé to lead the Special Forces Group tasked with safeguarding the head of state from potential coups, Doumbouya later orchestrated the September 2021 coup, contributing to a series of political upheavals in West Africa since 2020, including incidents in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Sworn in as president for a designated transitional period, Doumbouya pledged to implement comprehensive reforms in Guinea, a nation still grappling with poverty despite its abundant natural resources. In a meeting on Tuesday, Doumbouya convened with all Guinea's military units, engaging with over 450 members of the defense and security forces, as highlighted by the presidency on social media. The statement revealed that the entire defense and security forces expressed their collective desire to witness the head of state elevated to the rank of general.
Prominent Zimbabwean opposition figure Job Sikala was convicted of inciting public violence on Wednesday in Harare. Police accused the former MP of encouraging supporters to violently react to the death of opposition activist Mo Blessing Ali. Sikala's lawyer detailed the verdict.
Magistrate committee has convicted both Job Sikala and Honorable Godfrey Sitole of incitement to commit public violence. The matter was rolled over to Monday the 29th for the purposes of dealing with issues regarding mitigation.
Sikala had denied the charges, arguing that he was acting as the lawyer of Mo Blessing Ali's family. He has spent almost 2 years in prison without bail since his arrest.
The human rights situation in this country is extremely worrying, and it appears to be deteriorating. The use of pretrial incarceration, as we have seen with Job Sikala, the cases of abduction and torture, even some of those who were here in court.
Lawyers for Sikala and opposition MP Sitole will plead for leniency on January 29th. A small group of protesters sang in support for Sikala.
In sports news, a Spanish judge has proposed that former Football Federation President Luis Rubiales should stand trial over the Women's World Cup case involving captain Jenny Hermoso. Mr. Rubiales grabbed Ms. Hermoso's head and kissed her during the presentation after Spain's victory in Australia. She said the kiss was not consensual, a statement denied by Mr. Rubiales. A judge has found there is enough evidence for the matter to proceed to trial. During a hearing at the Audiencia Nacional or High Court in Madrid, the judge described the kiss as not consensual and an unilateral and surprising initiative. Prosecutors previously charged Mr. Rubiales with sexual assault. Penalties for such a case range from a fine to 4 years in prison. The incident has involved several Spanish football executives, including Ms. Hermoso's former coach, a former marketing manager, and the sports director of the men's team. That's it for our news tonight. Here's a recap of the headlines. Zambia's inflation rate increases for the consecutive 7th month to hit 13.2%. About 200 villagers in RUFUNSA district are on the verge of being evicted from their land. Government pledges to work with both private and public media. In international news, more than 70 dead in anti-center mine collapse in Mali. And in sports news, judge proposes Spain's Luis Rubiales face trial over Hermoso World Cup case. Our verse of the day is coming from the book of Ephesians 3:16. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his spirit in your inner being. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Sylvia Zulu. Good night and God bless you.